Hello, students. Welcome to the 8th topic of this course, Edu721, Psychology of Learning. Yeah, this happens to be the last lesson for this course in this semester, and we are treating the topic of behavior modification in the classroom. The goal of education is not only to make students acquire knowledge, it also involves managing student behavior. As you all know, students misbehave from time to time, which requires teachers to step in with disciplinary measures. Unfortunately, most of our teachers rely mostly on corporal punishment as a method of discipline. Yeah, corporal punishment is an ineffective method of modifying student behavior. It has major harmful consequences on children and students. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about several options or positive approaches that you can use to modify students' behavior without using corporal punishment. This lesson promises to be very interesting. Sit back and enjoy. Thank you. Okay, like I said, behavior modification in the classroom. Okay, what are the learning outcomes? After completing this lesson, you will be able to discuss the negative effects of corporal punishment. You will be able to define behavior modification and its principles. You will be able to discuss behavior modification techniques that could be used in place of corporal punishment. Okay, let's move on. How effective? Let's start off with understanding some facts about corporal punishment before we get into the the techniques of behavior modification. Let's start from the known to the unknown. Yeah, how effective is corporal punishment? That's the method of discipline most of our teachers are used to. Okay, like I said at the introductory remarks, impacting knowledge to students and managing their behavior are key responsibilities of the classroom teacher. While many teachers seem to be doing well on the aspect of imparting knowledge, yes, you are doing well on the aspect of imparting knowledge. That of managing student behavior is not being adequately implemented, as most teachers often rely on corporal punishment as a method of discipline. Moreover, these teachers, we understand you do not intend to harm your students when using corporal punishment, but instead you believe it is an effective discipline strategy when, yeah. So I want you to understand that corporal punishment is generally more harmful than it is helpful. Yes, in this lesson, you're gonna understand that. By the time we finish this lesson, you wouldn't want to use that means of correcting students again. It is more harmful than it is helpful. It has been shown to be an ineffective means of Discipline, yeah, I mentioned that already, and it has major harmful consequences. We're going to look at those consequences also, maybe in the second slide, second or third slide. Okay, so let's try. Corporal punishment is the use of physical force intended to cause some degree of physical pain and psychological discomfort for the purpose of correcting or controlling a child's behavior. Like I said, you as a teacher, some of these teachers do not intend to cause harm. That's not your intention. You believe that, okay, if I use corporal punishment, the student is going to change his or her behavior. So that is a simple definition of corporal punishment. Recall our earlier lesson under topic 2. We have treated this treated this concept of corporal punishment under topic 2, when we discussed about corporal punishment and its consequences under Skinner's theory. You remember that? Yeah, go back to topic 2 and refer to get more details about that. And then we also pointed out that some examples of corporal punishment that most teachers in our classroom, in our schools, in our Nigerian schools use include beating, slapping, knocking child's head with a knuckle, asking students to kneel down on hard surfaces, threatening to beat, yelling, verbal abuse, ridicule, name calling, and other forms. You know other forms, you can also include them on the list. You can see this list includes both physical punishment and psychological punishment. Psychological punishment such as yelling, verbal abuse, ridiculing, and name calling, and others. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, like I said, the consequences of corporal punishment. We have said is an ineffective method of discipline and has major harmful consequences on children and students. I can never stop saying that, repeating that, you know, so that it gets to the ears of our teachers, our parents, because in Nigeria, that is the only means of disciplining children that we know. So I will continue emphasizing on that fact. Okay. It is important for teachers to be aware of some of the drawbacks in using corporal punishment as a corrective technique. The following are some of the negative effects or consequences of corporal punishment. Okay, corporal punishment may cause children to become more aggressive and prone to antisocial behavior and delinquency. They learn to use corporal punishment. They learn to use physical violence to bully and control people. I'm sure you have experienced that in your class. Corporal punishment may lead to lying. Yes, children learn to tell lies instead of admitting their mistakes. They admitting their mistakes in order to avoid punishment. They want to avoid punishment, and that they start telling lies. 3, corporal punishment creates hostility and damages the relationship between the teacher and the child. Yes, corporal punishment hardens the teacher instead of correcting them. Yes. Hardens the child instead of correcting them. Corporal punishment suppresses the bad behavior only for it to find expression in other behavior problems. And it will cause behavior problems to worsen over time. You are beating a child for for, say, what do I say it now? For not maybe tidying up her room or his room. And then as time goes on, you know, you find out that this child, you continue doing this, the more you do that, the more the child gets hardened, and the more you the parent or the teacher gets beaten, or continue to beat that child. In no time, that child will, that behavior for which you started punishing that child will go and bring in other associated problem behaviors. So you find expression in other problem behaviors and cause many problem behaviors to worsen over time. These are some of the consequences. Also, corporal punishment causes fear, anxiety, withdrawal, and timidity in children. It has been established that children who are punished by teachers may come to fear the teacher and try to avoid school. You may be wondering why they avoided school. They're absent today. You don't know is the punishment they've been subjected to. Okay, corporal punishment. There won't really be time to really, because I have up to how many slides? Okay, so yeah, please go refer to the lesson note I've posted on your course page and then get more details of these facts so that we don't waste time in this session. Okay, corporal punishment has negative impact on children's cognitive development. Yes, it interferes with learning. If you are punishing a child because he or she performed poorly in a test or did not concentrate in the class or did poorly in the exam, it's totally wrong. You are destroying that child's cognitive development because the beating will not get that child's anywhere. It will not change anything about. Anyway, we will get into the other aspect, the positive techniques you can use to actually take the place of corporal punishment. Okay, we said second to the last, corporal punishment causes physical injury. Yeah, of course. Some deaths have even been reported on in cases where teachers have beaten some students to death. Corporal punishment can cause emotional as well as mental health problems. Yes, research has shown that children who are subjected to corporal punishment are more likely to develop mental health disorders. Yeah, so we have to go on, and otherwise it might take me more than 1 hour to explain all these consequences with practical examples and experiences. Yeah, because of these problems, corporal punishment should be avoided. It should not be used in correcting a behavior. I can't stop emphasizing on that. Yeah, there are quite a number of behavior modification techniques that teachers can use. We'll get to that. Okay, before we get to that, about the behavior modification issue, let's pause your video to attempt this class activity. Discuss 5 harmful effects that corporal punishment can cause students. Okay, yes, I know you now know how corporal punishment can cause harm to students. Just mention 5 of them. Okay, yeah, we continue. What is behavior modification? Behavior modification is the process of changing a behavior using the principles of operant conditioning. You remember the theory of operant conditioning, Skinner's operant conditioning. Skinner is known for this theory for his theory on operant conditioning. Please refer back to the second topic, topic 2, under Skinner. Yes, Skinner has to do a whole lot with this issue of behavior modification, his theory on operant conditioning. Yeah. That's where this behavior modification thing is hinged on. Okay, so behavior modification is the application of Skinnerian principles of operant conditioning in an effort to change unwanted behavior. Okay. Behavior modification uses the principles of operant conditioning to accomplish behavior change by replacing undesirable behaviors with appropriate behaviors. Okay. What is behavior modification? Okay, we continue with, okay, yeah, behavior modification, the concept clarification still continues. Behavior modification is an effective way to address a variety of problem behaviors, of behavior problems in students, and can be helpful in correcting many classroom undesirable behaviors. Examples of such undesirable behaviors may include noise making, truancy, cheating, failing to do assignment, inattentiveness, disobedience, missing classes, bullying, destructive tendencies, aggressiveness, cheating, fighting, stealing and lying, or stealing, then lying again, amongst others. I know you know you know some of these undesirable behaviors from students that you can also include on the list. Can name them. Okay, haven't mentioned that teachers should try to avoid, like I said before, try to avoid using corporal punishment, as they can cause problem behaviors to worsen over time. In fact, I will always emphasize this. I will always emphasize it. I can never stop talking about it until we get a good percentage of teachers who can come to my side, who can come to this view of avoiding the use of corporal punishment. Then I will stop. Okay, let's continue. Okay, most techniques of, it's important for you to know that most techniques of behavior modification operate on the principles of positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. These three principles, we have also treated them in more details under topic 2, under Skinner's theory. Okay, but to refresh your memory before we continue, to refresh your memory on this concept of, okay, positive reinforcement. This refers to giving a student something that will reinforce their good behavior. Examples include verbal praise, smiling or nodding at a student after a correct response, applauding the child, thumbs up, or patting a child on the back. We've already explained this. I'm only refreshing your memory. This particular slide is just refreshing your memory. Most of the things we've been discussing right from the beginning, just refreshing your memory of what we learned under topic 2. But understanding that background will help us get into what I am building on, we are getting into. That's why I'm still bringing it on, to link it to the unknown, from the known to the unknown. Okay, the second one, negative reinforcement. This is when a student is motivated to change behavior because it will take away something unpleasant. We said a student who completes his assignment on time to avoid being called out during assembly is trying to get rid of the negative reinforcer, that is being called out. What about negative punishment? This involves taking something pleasant away from a student to stop a behavior. Examples include taking away recess, that is the break time. For instance, if your student loves a particular activity, such as playing football during the break time, taking it away in response to poor grades or misbehavior may encourage such students to do better. Okay, let me just give one more example. Yeah, like in this last case, The teacher might decide to have the student miss his class. Okay, we have said that. Like if it is, okay, yeah, that's it. For instance, again, let me just cite a simple one. When a child misbehaves, for instance, a parent can take away the child's favorite toy for 1 week. It can take it away. That is, there is pleasant stimulus, something good. You have to make sure that it's something the child enjoys doing, or an activity the child enjoys doing. If it is a toy, it must be a toy the child enjoys playing with. That becomes a pleasant stimulus. That's pleasant stimulus is removed in order to stop the child's misbehavior. Yeah. And please, after that designated time period, maybe 1 week or few days, you should return the toy when the child starts behaving well, thereby reinforcing. If you do that, you are reinforcing the changed behavior, and the child will continue to want to do the, to behave well in order to retain the toy, the play toy. Okay, so let's continue. We come to the, yes, we come to the unknown now. I say unknown because some of us teachers may not know some of these techniques. We are not used to them in the classroom. That's what I mean. We are not used to them. We are only used to using corporal punishment, all different types. Yes, so I believe after this lesson, we'll begin to change perception, we'll begin to change the way we handle students in the class. Behavior modification techniques. There are several techniques of behavior modification that teachers can use to correct and discipline students. They include positive reinforcement, redirecting, talking and explaining, timeout, establishment of rules, grounding, withholding of privileges, and ignoring. Simple. Let's go on. Very simple. They all involve positive methods. They don't involve harsh methods like that of corporal punishment. Okay. Let's discuss them one after the other. Positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement refers to, we have mentioned them before, you already know them. We've been talking about it throughout this lesson course. You know, this course, we've been talking about a positive reinforcement. Giving a student something pleasant. That pleasant thing can be in form of smiles, hugs, nods of approval, thumbs up, praise, verbal praise, very simple, verbal praise, handshake, or recognizing that student, social recognition. Doing that in response to the correct thing the child does. That reinforcing that child will make the child continue to behave well. That's just as simple as that. Positive reinforcement. We say they can include verbal ones, verbal positive reinforcement, like saying, well done, fantastic, to a child, commending student. But you will see why maybe good, well done, are incomplete. We will get to that in this slide or the next one. Okay, non-verbal, they can include the non-verbal. You can categorize them like smiling, nodding at students after a correct response, applauding students. These are non-verbal. Thumbs up, giving a student a thumbs up, or patting their shoulders or back. Okay, and material rewards, for example, giving a child a book, pencil, recognizing them, presenting them a gift in form of these simple items you can easily purchase. But it has been emphasized that both verbal and non-verbal reinforcers are the most powerful reinforcers. They are easier to give and least expensive. You don't need to purchase them anywhere. You just give them out. They are from your mouth, they are from your hands, they are something you can express by yourself. But the material rewards should be used less often, please, so that the children don't, get used to that. Let's discuss more about praise. Yeah, simple praise, verbal praise. Those are the things Very simple. Most often that's the simplest out of all these types of, if I'm to say, to me, that's the simplest verbal praise because it's very versatile. You can use it for the whole class. You can use it for the individual child. So that's why I say it's very versatile, very simple to use, and the least expensive. Let's continue. So the teacher can reinforce a wide range of positive behaviors. Okay, we have said that, I don't need to waste more time here. It said here, when praise is used effectively, praise can turn around behavior challenges and improve students' attitude about learning. Sure, that is certain. Okay, praise comments are of two types. This is where I want you to note again. Praise comments are of two types. You have the general praise and specific praise. General praise, like I said before, saying something like good job, excellent, nice work. They are not making reference to anybody. They don't mean anything. So they are general, it is general and makes no reference to the specific behavior that is being praised. I've also mentioned this in previous lessons in one way or the other. This type of praise is not effective. Oh, please don't use it. Okay, what about specific praise? It's just the opposite of this. You mention the behavior and you mention the name of that person. It is specific for the positive behavior displayed by the students. This type of praise lets students know what they have done right. Teachers are encouraged to always use specific praise. For instance, instead of just saying, thank you, well done, good job, you can say, thank you, John, for helping me to put away the notebooks. You mention the name of the child and you mention the specific behavior that is being praised, that child has done. Emeka, you have done well for turning in your homework on time. You say it, that child will feel proud of himself or herself. Wow, Musa, you got all answers right. Wow. You see how it is than just saying, wow, it's right, correct. No. So let's continue. So for these techniques, I want you to know that in all the techniques we're going to mention, the 8 of them we are explaining now. I'm going to mention the age appropriateness of those techniques, meaning that the age groups of infant to adolescent has been divided into 4 groups. I'm going to mention the relevance of that, of each of these techniques. So which of the groups that the techniques will really that the groups will benefit from the techniques implemented. So I've divided the age groups into 4. You have the infants, 0 to 2 years, toddlers, 2 to 3 years, school age children, 4 to 12 years, and adolescent, 13 to 19 years. So for this positive reinforcement, it works well across all age groups from infancy to adolescence. I hope you understand what I've done, divided. So for easy clarification, so that we can fit in which techniques work best for each age group. That is the need for this group classification. So for this positive reinforcement, it works well for all the age groups from infancy to adolescent. Okay, let's continue with the second one. It is redirecting. This technique simply requires you to change or divert your child's attention from an inappropriate behavior to from inappropriate behavior to an appropriate one. Please, I'm only giving you I'm not giving the very much details of this lesson. Please refer to your lesson notes, especially that of positive reinforcement. It's more detailed than I have mentioned here because of time constraints. Okay, so as I was saying, yeah, redirecting, yeah. So as soon as you notice a child is going to misbehave, try diverting their attention and lead them to engage in another activity. That is what this technique is describing. For instance, if two children are going to fight over a toy, the teacher can do something to distract them. The teacher can also use talking and explaining. Talking and explaining is a third technique. We shall come to that. You can use this talking and explaining technique to guide them to exchange their toys and learn to share with each other. Redirecting is a technique that is most suitable for infants, toddlers. I'm not going to mention the years so that the years, when I say infants, you know what I mean. When I say toddlers and school age children, meaning that redirecting might not work for which of the age groups? Adolescent, yeah, you are correct, adolescents. That's 13 to 19 years. Okay. Number 3, talking and explaining. This technique involves telling a child what he or she is expected to do. The teacher's role is to talk things through with the child, guiding the child in reflecting on his or her behaviors and exploring the reasons behind it. For instance, a student has intentionally missed classes and the teacher guides him or her to see reasons on the importance of regular attendance. Most often what we do in our classrooms, you miss a class like today, then tomorrow you come to the class, the teacher will start beating you or abusing you or using abusive words on you and yelling at you. Now you have seen that you can use talking and explaining as a behavior modification technique to actually change the child's behavior, for the child to see reasons on the importance of regular attendance. Yes. Be it from today till tomorrow, till next year, if that child wants to miss classes, that child will miss. But if you use this technique, you will win that child's psyche. You know, you will really get that child to accept that, yes, regular attendance is important for students, for him to achieve his goal. Okay, for which of the age groups is this technique beneficial? This technique works well for school-age children, 4 to 12 years, and adolescents, good. Meaning that talking and explaining will not work for infants, will not work for toddlers. I hope you are noting all of this so that you don't just use a technique across the board. You know, the certain techniques are beneficial for certain age groups. It's very, very important for you to know that. Okay, time out. Number 4, time out. This is a procedure in which a child is physically removed from a desirable environment and kept in a timeout location for a period of time during which reinforcement is unavailable. When a child misbehaves, he or she is removed from a desirable activity in an effort to decrease the unwanted behavior. Okay, I think I'm repeating what I've said. It operates on the principle of negative reinforcement. That's another thing we're going to be knowing or learning. For each of these techniques, just as we classify them into the age groups in which they are most beneficial, there are also, we know each of them also has the principle. Remember, we mentioned that they operate on certain principles. It's either on the principle of positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement or negative punishment. This particular one operates on the principle of negative punishment. That of timeout, we shall see. In fact, I did a summary categorizing all of them. You shall see that, you know, just to help your understanding. Okay, for instance, a child might be playing on the playground. That is example of timeout. A child might be playing on the playground with friends and pushes another child. The misbehaving child would then be removed from the activity for a short period of time. Most teachers tend to use this timeout sometimes, or even parents at home, but we use them wrongly. That's why we never see the effectiveness of this type of technique, because we don't use it right. Please refer to my lesson note. The detailed information is there on how you can maximize the effective use of this timeout. The recommended timeout period should be 1 minute for each year of the child. If Jenny is 5 years, it means she has to sit in a timeout for 5 minutes. Don't overdo that. Don't put the child in a timeout for 2 hours and just leave the child there. You are damaging that child. You are causing harm on that child in many ways. And remember to give the child a hug or a kind word when timeout is over. Timeout works well with children aged 2 to 12. Okay, it is particularly useful for the correction of temper tantrums, whining, yelling, fighting, and aggression. This technique is suitable for toddlers and school-age children only. Please don't use timeout for adolescents. I think adolescents have their own. It's not called timeout, they have their own. It's something almost similar to this. We shall come to that. It's called grounding. We shall come to that. Okay, so this technique is used for younger children, please. Okay. Establishment of rules as another technique of behavior modification. All classrooms need rules to function effectively. Agreed. Rules should be posted at the front of the class. Students should have an input in the formulation of these rules. Okay. We all need rules to function, whether in class or outside of class. So in class, most teachers hardly have rules to guide the behavior of students. Please, it's always good, begin each new year by establishing clear behavioral expectations. What do you want your students? How do you want them to behave? Your behavioral expectations. Write them out and have the students make an input in the formulation of those rules. That way, they will be encouraged to respect those rules. So follow all these principles in the establishment of rules. You will see that, even the children themselves, the students themselves will be the ones policing themselves. It will even reduce your workload. They will be the one policing, oh, you didn't do this. Oh, you have broken one of the rules. You just experience that. Have the student make an input in the formulation of those rules. They should be simple rules. Okay, we said the rules must be reasonable and easy to follow. They should be clearly stated in as few words as possible. They should match with the children's age and development place. And the children should be able to carry them out. And those rules should be stated in a positive way. For instance, raise your hand and wait to be called on before speaking. It's better than don't speak unless you are called on. That one looks like a command and is stated in a negative way. Don't speak unless you are called on. Even for some of the private schools in Nigeria that tend to use this type of technique, that tend to establish rules, you see that most of the rules are stated in a negative way. Please try to turn around those negative rules into positive statements. For instance, don't shout, don't run, don't snatch others' toys. You can say, instead of don't shout, you can say, speak slowly. Instead of don't run, walk slowly. They should set these rules in a positive way. Raise your hand and wait to be called on before speaking. Okay, share your toys with others. Don't snatch other people's. Let's reduce the our negative comment that we make on children and students. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. We are asked to convert all those don'ts statements to do statements. Focus on do, not don'ts. Focus on do. Do this, speak slowly, walk slowly, do this, raise your hands up before speaking. Please let us as teachers try to imbibe this type of rules in our classrooms. The next one is grounding. Like I said, grounding is like the opposite of timeout. Timeout is for younger children. Like I said, grounding is mostly suitable for school children and adolescents. This technique calls for restricting your child from, excuse me, from participating in a certain event or social activity and maintaining that they must remain in a specific place, such as their room. Oh, please, can I just take to clear my throat? Just a second. Okay, yeah. Yeah, confining them in their room or, as punishment. During this time period, any reinforcement and other privileges are taken away, such as using the internet. Yeah, if you are confining that child in a room with the internet connectivity, that child will be busy surfing the internet, browsing and playing, might not feel that confinement as a punishment, or playing video games. So make sure that there is no any form of reinforcement in that room, or privileges, valued privileges are taken away. Make sure they are taken away. Okay, this technique operates on the principles of negative reinforcement. You can see why I started defining the concept of negative, that particular slide, so that you can connect this understanding from one slide to the other. Okay, so the seventh one, withholding privileges. Most times, most of us do some of these things. We implement this, but whether we're doing it right or wrong, we shall know here. Withholding privileges, it involves taking something pleasant away from a student to stop a behavior. That thing must be pleasant before that student can see this type of technique as a punishment. Mind you, you are not punishing, you are not using abusive words, you are not humiliating that child, you are not ridiculing that child. This technique operates on the principle of negative punishment. Examples include taking away recess or removing the teacher's positive attention to decrease behavior. Okay, to decrease, where am I? Or removing the teacher's positive, okay, yeah. The teacher's positive to decrease a behavior. Withholding privileges as a technique is more appropriate for school-age children and adolescents. Don't use it for babies, infants, toddlers. It won't work for them. It will not work. It won't be effective for them as a behavior modification technique. Okay. Make sure that thing you are withholding is something the child loves. If it's a toy, make sure it's a particular toy the child likes. If it's an activity or a child that likes playing during recess, during the break time, you can, during the break time, keep that student in the classroom. Just keep that student alone while others are playing outside. I tell you, after doing that for a day or two, that child wouldn't want to misbehave again. If it's a child that really loves to play football during recess, yes, during recess, that child will want to change for the better. Okay, the last but not the least of the techniques Ignoring. It is a technique of removing reinforcement by ignoring inappropriate behavior. This technique requires teachers to ignore inappropriate behaviors and to focus only on reinforcing appropriate behaviors. It's self-explanatory. When the child does wrong, just forget it. Don't punish, don't talk. The more you talk or the more you punish, the more you are reinforcing that unwanted behavior, the more the unwanted behavior will continue. So this technique, if you use it very well, it does not involve talking. It only involves you being observant in observing the student when that student is doing well or near well. You don't have to wait for the real outcome. Reinforce the process, not the outcome. Start from, oh, the child seems as if he's doing well. Just reinforce it and help to shape the behavior towards the approximation, towards the real behavior. So this ignoring strategy, if you really know how to use this technique, it works like magic. Yeah, any behavior that is not reinforced will automatically be extinguished. That is a principle of the operant condition. Any behavior that you did not reinforce will automatically be extinguished. If you did not reinforce a bad behavior, that bad behavior will be extinguished. If you did not reinforce a good behavior, that good behavior from time, as time goes on, will reduce. So reinforcement plays a very key role in this particular type of technique. This ignoring technique plays a very big role in almost all of them. Even in positive reinforcement, it plays a big role. It plays a big role because you, the teacher, oh, there's no time for detailed explanation. No time. I would have just talked more on this. You know, you, the teacher, you, the parent, can use this technique a lot. Sometimes the child is doing something, misbehaving, pretend as if you didn't see that child and focus on when the child is doing well. Concentrate your reinforcement, your praise on the child when the child is doing well. In no time, the child, that bad behavior will gradually reduce. It will be extinguished. Okay, let's continue. This technique operates on the principle of negative reinforcement. The fourth one, if a student is engaging in an unwanted behavior because he or she is getting the reward of attention from the teacher or from the parent, okay, from the teacher, because we are talking about student, then removing this reward, that is reward of attention, removing it by ignoring the student should eventually stop the behavior from occurring. Please, fellow teachers, all these principles have been tested. They have been tested over time, over many decades, over years, decades of years, over the years. I don't know what to say again to show you that over time it has been tested and put out there for us to implement. For instance, imagine that Lucy enjoys getting attention from her teacher when she makes strange noises during lessons. The teacher can try to extinguish Lucy's behavior by ignoring her. Okay. Consistently ignoring an unwanted behavior leads it to its extinction. According to experts, 3 reinforcers maintain most classroom behaviors: teacher's attention, the peer's attention, or release from boredom or frustration or fatigue. So in observing the child, observe the child and try to determine which reinforcers are maintaining that target behavior. If it is the teacher's reinforcers, this particular example that we used, that we cited Lucy, imagine that Lucy enjoys getting attention from her teacher when she makes strange noises. She makes strange noises. I'm sure we have experienced some children that do that. What they are looking for is just attention. They are looking for attention from the teacher. Even the attention of saying or yelling at that child is still attention. Attention is attention. when you yell at that child, will you stop that child has gotten the attention she's looking for, or you beat that child just needs that attention at that moment, be it positive attention or negative attention. Attention is attention. So if you ignore, if you remove that attention, that the reward of attention that you've been giving that child, whenever that child makes that strange noise, if you just remove it by ignoring that child, you will see that in no time that behavior will stop. It will be extinguished in the terminology of learning theory, to be extinguished. Okay, if it is like the peer's attention, what happens? Okay, let me cite an example. Consider maybe a child, maybe like John. John disrupts the class and the class responds by laughing. The response by the classmate, by the class, serves as a reinforcement. That attention, that laughter, that attention is a reinforcement for that child, for that disruptive behavior. And it will increase the likelihood that John will disrupt the class again to gain that attention in the future. Okay. If John disrupts the class, but the teacher and the other classmates choose to simply ignore John's behavior, the reinforcement of the unwanted behavior is eliminated without receiving any reinforcement of his behavior over time. It might not just be once, it's not a one-time thing. So you just continue to just ignore it. Gradually, it will stop. The bad behavior will stop. Okay, that's the number 8 of the techniques. So as already noted, behavior modification techniques operate on the principles of positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. And they are all from Skinner's operant conditioning theory. From what we have discussed, we can summarize the various techniques and the principles under which they operate that I have done in this slide here. Okay, yeah, behavior modification techniques and the principles operating in them. Yeah, there are 8 of those techniques. Positive reinforcement, that's a principle of positive reinforcement, and the technique positive reinforcement falls under the principle of positive reinforcement. Two techniques fall under the principle of negative, it operates under the principle of negative reinforcement, redirecting and establishment of rules. 4 principles, 4 techniques fall under the, is operating under the principle of negative reinforcement: timeout, grounding, withholding, ignoring. Please, there is one I did not include here: talking and explaining. Please maybe when we meet face to face, when we meet during the facilitation class, please, you tell me under which of these principles we can place that one, the talking and explaining technique. Yeah. Okay, we'll soon come to the end of, okay, age appropriateness. Yes, I've also summarized the age appropriateness of the various behavior modification techniques, just to help you, just to further help your understanding. I've summarized them in this table. Yes, so as you can see, 0 there, anyone with 0 point, yeah, the age groups have been categorized into 4: infant, toddler, school age, and adolescent with their ages. And then you have the behavior management techniques on the left-hand side: positive reinforcement, redirecting, verbal, 1 to 8. You can see anyone with 0 sign, sign, means that it is not effective, no effective. You can see the key on the screen. It means no effectiveness. It is not effective. And anyone with a plus sign means it is effective. So from this table, it can be seen that positive reinforcement and redirecting are effective control techniques that are suitable for infants. Yes, only two of them are numbers 1 and 2, positive reinforcement. And from what we have discussed, I was able to summarize this. We have already discussed them. This is just the tabular presentation of what we discussed about the techniques of behavior modification. So they are suitable for, why the rest are not suitable for infants. Okay, what about for school, for toddlers? You have positive reinforcement, redirecting, time out, yes, time out are the techniques that work well for toddlers, 3 of them. Why the rest are not? Only 3. I will only mention those with a plus. Okay, what about school-age children? Respond positively to all these techniques, to all these control techniques or behavior modification techniques listed. You can see under school age, they respond very well. They have 0 on their own column. They respond well in all of these techniques if you can use them on school age. So those of us teaching in the primary level of education, here is a challenge for you. It's not challenge, it's easy for you. You can pick any one of them you want to use at a particular time and use them. So you have several options to use. Teachers for primary school, you are lucky you have several options. So no more beating, no more slapping, no more yelling, no more ridiculing and humiliating the children. Okay. For adolescents, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the techniques that work well for them. They are considered effective for them, and they include positive reinforcement, verbal instruction, establishment of rules, grounding, and withholding of privileges. What about, did I mention ignoring? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually supposed to be 5. Ignoring. What did we say about ignoring? Did we say it is suitable for, oh, I don't want this to waste our time. Let's move on, please. Please, can somebody pinpoint what is wrong under adolescent? It's actually supposed to be 5 effective ones that adolescents, that can be used on adolescents. I can't remember about ignoring. Please, I don't want to waste more time. Let's move on. I will confirm that last point, please. The power of positive reinforcement. Like we mentioned, positive reinforcement of all the techniques, positive reinforcement remains the most effective technique appropriate for children of all ages. Children of all of them, positive reinforcement is the one that is common to all of them, meaning that this technique must be a very powerful one. It is good for toddlers, it is good for school-age children, it is good for infants, good for adolescents. Must be a powerful, there must be a magic in this technique now that makes it so. It is a very powerful technique that can be used to increase desirable behaviors and at the same time decrease unwanted behaviors. How? How does it work? How does it do that thing? The two-way thing. It will increase desirable behavior and at the same time decrease unwanted behavior. For instance, giving attention to student desirable behavior through positive reinforcement can actually prevent them from misbehaving to seek attention. Remember what I said about reinforcement. The more reinforce something that the child is doing. If it's a bad behavior, the child will continue to be bad. If it's a good behavior, the child will continue to be good, and the bad behavior will reduce. Just focus on the good behavior and praise and give positive reinforcement. By so doing, you create conditions in the classroom that encourage positive behavior in students, and the likelihood of the student misbehaving decreases. I've said this on and often and on throughout the course of this discussion. Therefore, positive reinforcement remains as a vital tool and technique in teaching and learning activities. Means that you can use positive reinforcement to increase desirable behaviors. You can also use positive reinforcement to decrease unwanted behaviors. Left to me, I would like to use this. You are using this hand in hand with ignoring. Remember, once you focus your attention on one, you are ignoring the other one. You focus your attention on increasing desirable behavior. You focus your attention on what the child is doing well and reinforcing that child. That's where you focus your attention. While you are doing that, you are ignoring what the child is doing bad. But under ignoring, please, a word of warning. Under ignoring, it is important that you don't just neglect the child. Do not ignore the child. What I'm trying to say is that although you might use ignoring strategy, please, but do not ignore the child when the child's life is at danger. For instance, the child, you see that the child's life is at danger and you want to say you are ignoring that child. Please, it's a very important note to take note of. It's a very important point to take note of for teachers if you are using ignoring strategy. Yeah, I actually forgot to mention that. Please make sure that while using ignoring strategy, the lives, you do not ignore the child if the child's life is at danger. If the child is at danger of anything, please don't see the child being at danger and then you say you are ignoring the child. Please, it's good I remember to say that so that we do not misuse the effectiveness of that technique. Okay, if I said there's the power of, okay, there are only one or two things I want you to note before we close, please. Important point to note when using behavior modification techniques in the classroom. Behavior modification techniques should be age appropriate. I've said that, or already noted that you know what to use for a particular age group, and should be tailored to the student that is being worked with. It is important to remember that some methods may not work for some children, as each child has different characteristics. Every child is different. We all know that as student psychologists. And the strategies that work well for one child might not work with another. For example, sending a child who enjoys time alone to their room for behavior modification, to their room, may have little or no effect. If your child does not enjoy using electronics, taking away maybe a time to play a video game will not modify the behavior. For instance, for someone like me, I like to have my time to myself most of the time. Yeah, I like to have my time. If you want to use it as a punishment for me, in fact, you are reinforcing that behavior. I will continue to even do the misbehavior to end that time out so that you continue keeping me in time out, because I really love it. I really love just to enjoy my privacy, my private space most of the time, and do what I'm doing. So that is there. Make sure it's not an activity the child loves. If you use it as punishment to confine that child in a timeout, it will not work for that. Again, if your behavior modification system does not produce the desired effect, it should be reviewed and revised immediately. We have about 8 of them. that we have explained. So if you think one is not really giving you the, but make sure it is the age appropriate technique you are using and use it very effectively, you know. Again, consistency is the key to making behavior modification effective. When used consistently, behavior modification techniques can change a student's behavior. Okay, I think we have said it all. You know, this lesson is not actually enough to explain what I would have wanted to explain, but you can refer back to your lesson note. It has more details there. There is a class activity for you. Okay, mention 2 behavior modification techniques that is suitable for a 10-year-old primary school child. Think of a student behavior that you would like to change. How would you use positive reinforcement technique to change that behavior? How would you, the third one, how would you use negative punishment to correct a 6-year-old child who likes to disturb the class? Class, on that note, as a summary, I've said that imparting knowledge to students and managing their behavior appropriately is key to successful learning, teaching and learning. In this lesson, you have learned about behavior, the concept of behavior modification and the techniques of behavior modification. You learned that corporal punishment is never to be used to manage student behavior. Teachers can use behavior modification techniques in their classrooms to increase desirable student behaviors. Well, this lesson happens to be the last lesson for this semester, for this course in this semester. We have been able to cover the course content for this course, Edu721 Psychology of Learning. It's been a great pleasure taking you through this course, and I enjoyed every time I've spent doing this. Until I come your way again, it's goodbye from me, and thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.